afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sorry we're about 2 minutes late. We just had some final housekeeping to do on the back end there. This is number 17, which I think, if I'm keeping track, I think we're at 17. If I missed, I'm sure the internets will tell me. In a freshly certified webinar series brought to you by the RGD, and today we have chosen the topic of color. And because we've done 17 of these, one of my very, very favorite, now it's hard to pick a favorite because they're all my favorites of the 17, but one of my favorites that we've done in the past was an episode on color. So if you go back into YouTube and take a look at it, it's featuring some of the work of Parker McLean, who was actually speaking or has spoken at Design Thinkers in the past as well too. Fantastic guy, fantastic friend of mine, and worth checking out. So to introduce myself, my name is Amanda Bolte. I'm a serial freelancer, mentor, and designer and CD at Sparks, an agency in London, Ontario. Most importantly, today I'm a certified RGD and an active volunteer on the certification committee. I also have the privilege to review certification presentations, which is a perk. So getting involved in this, getting involved in the organization like this and being able to review certification presentations as they come in is a great way of meeting new designers as they come in, and it's one of my favorite parts of it. So before we get started and we get into the real meat and the favorite part of this webinar, I have some quick housekeeping notes. If you do have any questions for our presenters, pop them into the channel at any time during the presentation. We'll save them for the end so everyone can present without interruption. I'll do my best to direct any questions that you have to the designers today, so I'll try and get to everyone, or answer any questions about the RGD or the certification process in general. So questions can kind of come from anywhere. Feel free to feel free to ask them and we'll get the right person to answer them for you. So today's focus, other than color and great color and design, this session is focused about the RGD certification experience. So I just need to talk about that here a little bit. So especially about how to build and present your case studies. So this is a skill that you can translate obviously in your day-to-day life, but we're talking about the certification presentation, and it's a great way to build those case studies for portfolios as well too. So this panel of recently certified RGDs will share how they chose their projects, how they gathered the assets, structured their presentations, and most importantly, how they told their story of their work, which is my favorite part. But first, before anyone is curious about the biggest picture of RGD and the certification, I'm just going to give you a little quick overview. So RGD is a community of over 4,000 like-minded professionals, firm owners, freelancers, managers, educators, students who share resources, professional development, and a vibrant exchange of ideas. Through RGD, Canadian designers connect, educate, and inspire, set professional standards, and advocate for the value of design. For more information on whether it's membership benefits, resources, or upcoming events, just visit rgd.ca. So let's talk about the certification at a glance. Becoming an RGD is a four-step process. You submit an application to confirm eligibility. For more information on what those eligibility items are, please just reach out to the on the internet, on the website at rgd.ca. But it's really easy, just a checklist to confirm that you're eligible. You take an online test. You present your portfolio in a virtual review, which is already done during the application process. And then you receive your results from the RGD. Recently, the RGD board had made a couple of updates. It's been a little bit more than recently, and this is probably going to be the last time I make this update because I feel like we've kind of worked it out. But just in case it's been a minute since you've looked at the certification process and are just looking at the eligibility, we used to have the biggest change is we used to have to submit 6 case studies and do an in-depth study on 6 pieces of your work. We've since reduced that to 3, both for the application and the virtual portfolio presentation. So everyone attending today will get a follow-up email summarizing these changes and providing a link to download and the updated application form. So if you have any questions on, all that kind of summary of everything that I just said, you'd easily be able to just, you'll get that information after this webinar. Excuse me, I'm sorry. It's been a day. So now we're going to talk about the portfolio review. So this is the fun part. So now that you think that, sorry, now is the virtual fun part. Aha, fun. We'll present your portfolio online in a 30-minute session to three senior designer practitioners. People like me who serve as RGD reviewers, you'll talk through the same three projects you submitted in your application and walk us through your thinking, processes, and results. If you'd like to dig deeper into the certification process, there's plenty of information in recorded webinars. So there's more of these webinars. Obviously, there's 16 more of them that you can go and take a look at on YouTube or on the RGD website. And you can also reach out to Heidi Very, who is my very best friend at the RGD, or subscribe to the free RGD Word newsletter for updates, which I hope some of you actually got the notification about this webinar in. All right. So I'm going to hand it off to my very first designer on the panel today, Mr. Tyler Diaz, RGD. Tyler is the founder of Pixels and I should have asked you that beforehand. A creative studio based in Toronto. He has nearly 20 years of experience working in brand, digital, and strategy with a focus on problem simplification and intent-driven design. He employs visuals to clarify thinking and produce work that clients trust and terms are proud of. Tyler, I can't wait. This is awesome.
I
Oh,
just requested permission to share my screen, so hopefully, oh, I got it.
there we go.
All good? Looks good. Okay. Yeah, so I'm gonna walk you through one of the
Oh, just
three.
wait 1 second, Tyler. Hold on
Yeah,
a second. Technical difficulties today.
no problem.
It's okay. Yusuf, we need his screen up.
Yeah, it should be working fine now.
Is my screen up?
Yeah,
I don't.
I can see it.
You can see it? Okay, then
Yeah.
it's on me. I'm sorry.
Okay, so as I was saying, I'm going to walk you through one of the three case studies that I presented during the certification process. But what I'm going to try and do is, where appropriate, I'm going to share a little bit about what I was thinking, the things that I included and why I thought it was important to include them, and share maybe a little bit about what I probably could have done better. I'm hoping that'll be really helpful as you start to consider putting together one of these for your interview. So the case study that I'm going to walk through today is for a client called Curation. The project specifically was about their brand identity and their website. Curation is a startup company, or was a startup company. They are what would traditionally be referred to as a staffing firm. And they focused on this idea of the future of work, which is really this idea that we're shifting into an era of work where it's very gig economy based. They started to evolve as a company, and they started to notice a gap between what they were saying and how they were presenting themselves and the things that they were selling to their clients. And so they needed some help. They needed some support in how they bridged that gap between their visuals and their messaging and the way that they looked and the way that they went to market. They essentially were evolving from a startup into an actual legit company. For all of my case studies, I like to incorporate a little bit of the team that worked on it. Many of these case studies were things that came out of my firm, and so we do employ a lot of people as we kind of craft these projects. So obviously I had kind of led the design for this. We engaged my friend Daniel, who helped us with brand strategy at the top of the project. Desiree is our designer on staff who helped with production and fleshing out a lot of the visuals. And of course, our web developer, Kate, who helped us with implementing the website over Webflow. Every good project or every good case study starts with a challenge. And for this project, the biggest challenge to overcome was actually the client. Andrew was a very strong CEO. He was someone who had very strong opinions, but he was one of those guys who had great instincts, showed a little bit of design knowledge, enough to be dangerous, but at the end of the day, wasn't really able to translate that into clear direction. It was a bit of a mind shift for us because we needed help. We needed to help him a little bit more in terms of facilitating our knowledge of design and bridging the gap between what his expectations were. And so we listened carefully. We tried to ask the right questions. But at the end of the day, what was really important was respecting his energy and his instincts while also protecting the design process and keeping momentum for the project. The project broke into two kind of key phases. We like to start all brand identity projects, particularly when it comes to visuals and websites, with messaging. Messaging gives us a really great framework to work from, evolve from, and rationalize a lot of creative decisions. And so that's where we started for this. We pulled together all of the key leadership at the organization, including Andrew, into what's called a brand workshop. Daniel and I kind of led the group through a series of questions, really picking their brains about things like what their competition was saying when they were in sales calls, what the objections were that they were seeing that were most common, where they felt they were really different as a company, where they felt the opportunities were, that sort of thing. We then took all that information and organized it into a document just to make sure that we were making the right decisions for the right reasons. One of the key things that was really important was a competitor review. The thing that we unearthed in our brand workshop was that they didn't really have one typical type of client that they competed against. There were actually three. There were the new school talent platforms. So these were platforms where users could upload their resume and then employers could find them. There was the old school recruiters. So these are companies who you submit your resume to. They work with companies to bridge the gap between you and employment. And then lastly, there are just general platforms. There are platforms where companies can buy access to them and be able to use them. They were all three of these things at the same time. And so it was really important for us to deep dive into all of these different companies and understand how they were going to market. And this brought up a bunch of key recommendations. One was that we needed to find an ownable color. There was a sea of blue. There were some common colors across the board. And so having an ownable color was going to help us differentiate ourselves. We also wanted to ensure that we use the right types of imagery. Many of the technology-only companies showed a lot of digital stuff. Many of the old school talent places showed a lot of people stuff. We were doing both. So we needed to find something that kind of bridged that gap. Once we had all that information, we put together what's called a brand platform. This is a common thing, but this is the kind of construct that we use at this agency. It really breaks down into a few different components, summarizing a North Star idea, describing the personality of the company, articulating who they work with, what they do, how they do it, why they do it, all the important stuff. Once we have this, we can use this to inform a lot of our decisions by way of messaging and visuals. We used it to define a tagline that was your future workforce now. The client loved it. Andrew really did love it. And we were very excited. We had a bunch of research that we had done. We kind of knew the lay of the land when it came to competition. And so we got to work right away on our next deliverable, which is something called the Stylescape. This is just something to help us align visuals and the direction that we wanted to go from. And we kind of had a blast putting them together. We're really excited to show them. The problem was he hated them. He really did not like what we put together. And so this posed a bit of time for reflection for us. What do you do when you've done all the right things and you still end up with a client being unhappy? Remember how I said we needed to guide them a little bit more? That's what we needed to do. And so we took a step back. We put together a framework of how we need to think about a visual identity after getting the messaging right. And this went back to the basics, describing what a visual identity is. Things like it's really the culmination of fonts, colors, graphics, layout, how we use them consistently across the board. What makes a great visual identity, how it needs to be simple, memorable, appropriate, and versatile. and things to keep in mind as you go across an exercise like this. And this is something that I think is incredibly important with stakeholders who are a little too smart. We have to articulate that it's never love at first sight. It takes time for new things to acclimatize to us. That it's not really about what you like, client, it's also about what's going to work out in the market. How that we as humans are pattern recognition beasts, and sometimes we see patterns where they don't actually exist. We have to be conscious of that. The example that I like to use is the red Macy's star and the red Heineken star. They're the exact same star and almost the exact same shade of red. That doesn't mean that they don't work. And last, that we're building a platform. Just because you're not seeing something here doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. We're going to use these elements to develop something new. And the most important part was finding key examples that we found for inspiration out in the market. The client provided some, we provided some, and talking about how these were reflective of the personality we developed in the brand platform. What felt energetic? What felt forward thinking? What felt adaptable? And it was only after all of that that we got to a stylescape that was really compelling to them. They loved it. And this is where you can see where some of those decisions about finding a usable color or an identifiable color and using a new type of approach to show people and technology together kind of comes to bear. I'm going to put a note here. This is where I think I could have done a little bit better. There was a story between here and here that I didn't articulate, which was, how did I develop this from a design standpoint, taking the client out of the conversation? And that was something that the committee had expressed after the fact that I could have done better on, and I completely agree. The truth is, I don't really know what I did. It was kind of a wild ride when we did this project. I didn't record it. All I knew is that we were really stressed, and then we were really not. But since then, I've now recorded the process a little bit more. I've kept it top of mind just in case I can use it in the future. Once we had this, the floodgates opened, and we were able to execute everything against the SOW fairly easily. The key thing was the website. In the background, we were working on wireframes. Once we had the stylescape, we put them together. They had a baby, which ended up being the actual website for the company. An example of how it looked on a tablet. This is all the cool mock-up stage, the laptop, phone. And because this was an identity that they were going to use as they move forward, an example of how it looked on a presentation cover and some out-of-home advertising examples. At the end of the day, some of the success metrics that came out of the project really were that once they launched the website, they saw a bump in sales calls and leads from their website, which is great. Started acting a little bit more like a lead generation platform for them. They had a design system now that they could use. So if you take a look at their socials, all of the partners, all of the recruitment people, they're using the system. They're using the colors, they're using the logo, they're using the way that we kind of put it all together consistently, which is great. And lastly, even though I had a lot of challenges with Andrew, we ended up becoming pretty close friends, and we still talk about hockey today. And I learned a lot about how to facilitate design exercises with people who are extremely smart at what they do. And that's all I got. That was my case study.
Sorry, let me bring back on here. Sorry, guys. That was amazing, Tyler. Fantastic work. I love your honesty and your sense of humor. It makes me laugh. Um, I can't share I'm here, guys. I'm just like I can't share my camera, but that was fantastic. I've never seen someone highlight the demographic, like your stakeholder on who you're talking to before. And it was really funny is that you say technical difficulties today, but Yusuf didn't mute me, and I actually snuffed, like I giggled because I was like, that is. It's so true, right? Like when you're telling the story to the RTD or you're telling the story to, like as a certification, it's like you get to tell these stories in a different way that you normally would, right? You have how It's like, I don't know if you tell that story in the same way when you're trying to pitch client to, so you know this really client that I had that was like a pain in the ass? No, I'm just like, I love that. That just made me laugh so hard. Sorry. But that was fantastic. So I love your intentional use of color. I have questions at the end, but I just needed to comment on that because that made me laugh. So we're gonna stop sharing your screen, and we're gonna go on to our next person, which is Aiden. Aiden is a Dartmouth, Nova Scotia-based graphic designer, multidisciplinary artist, and entrepreneur. He has worked with big companies and small companies. He considers himself very lucky to be able to pick up a pencil every morning and make things for people. Aiden, love that. I can't wait to see the work that you're going to present to us today.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's good to be here. So yeah, I'll share my screen and go through everything. So yeah, I presented my case studies I think it was about a month ago, and this is one of three. So with my case studies, I varied things a little bit. Like I kind of have a bit of a
Just one
widespread practice.
second. Just
Yeah,
one
no
second.
worries.
Sorry, Aiden. Can you get your screen up, or is it just me again, Yusuf?
Oh, am I not sharing? What a
Nope,
nightmare. Okay.
that is why I'm here. It's okay.
I'm so into Google Meets. I just when I go into Zoom mode, I get scared of Zoom. I'm
You're
scared of
you're in a
Zoom.
safe place among friends, I promise. You're good to go.
It's all the same anyway. Here we go. So yeah, I did like I said I did this about a month ago. So I kind of varied my case studies because I do like a pretty wide breadth of work. So I had a signage project I did a wayfinding signage design system for a library, and then I also did a this case study I'm going to show here that has bright colors, which is kind of part of the reason why they wanted me to present it. And then the other one I did was I own and manage and run a skateboard company. So I showed like my branding and the skateboard designs I did for that. So yeah, I thought it was good. They enjoyed how I kept things varied and how I my work is different. So I encourage anyone who's doing this to show work that is dear to you, and show things that are different. So that's kind of where that stood for me. Anyway, um, all my case studies, I just started with a nice, cover photo. I was lucky enough to work with a really great photographer on this Kateko Lake Honey project. So we art directed some photo shoots, and they provided tons of photos for this project. I've been working with this company for a long time. I guess it's been 15 years because it's my cousin's business. So I've been doing his branding forever. So anyway, uh, basically, I started out with project credits, project goals, project brief. Very text heavy. If I was to do this again in the in the future, which I guess I won't have to, but just be aware that when you're presenting your case studies, people prefer photography. More so, it's more like a PowerPoint kind of presentation style thing, right? So anyway, but this is how I do a lot of writing when I do my branding work. So this helped me kind of figure out how to articulate my presentation. So I'll talk a little bit about like my case study structure. So obviously I want to show kind of like what I did on the project. And I can't take full credit for this project because my business partner, Brandon Hood, did a lot of the work as well. But I kind of, in points here, I said that we did research, brand positioning, brand strategy, all that kind of stuff, right? And then obviously credit the photographer, always credit people you work with. And same thing Tyler said. And wanted to put in the project goals obviously as well. And basically, I'll just give you the rundown just so you can have kind of context of like the branding. Basically, Kateko Lake Honey is a honey company out of Saskatchewan. They wanted a place to put their honey into a different market. So they wanted to start making honey mustard. had, good quality ingredients, as natural as possible. And so yeah, they came to my business partner and I, and they said, we have this product idea. Can you figure out how it looks, how it sounds, um, how um, how it feels, basically. So we had to figure out how to position it, target market, all that kind of stuff, um, and also like we helped them figure out like price points and like who we wanted to sell the product to, and where it would be sold essentially. So we're lucky enough that this product has gotten into several hundred stores throughout Western Canada. And I think there's plans of moving it to Ontario fairly soon. So that's always looks good for us. So makes it, we're doing the right thing, right? Anyway, um, so basically we working with the client, we came up with a project brief, and a timeline. That's one thing I always do with projects is create a project timeline just so the client and the designers are on the same page. And if things get delayed, then everyone can see that we all have accountability. And yeah, so I think I can skip ahead here. Design process for this project. Uh, was basically just lots of research and stuff like that. One thing I want to note too for people who are doing doing their portfolios, yeah, add more photos than I did, I think, or and maybe make them bigger. I ended up redoing this presentation for the actual case study interview, and I spread out the photos over I think about 3 pages, and just kind of I had more sketches and stuff, so I added those in as well. So always good to add some initial sketches. I did have the one sketch, as you can see it in the bottom right corner, but yeah, the more the better. I'd say process is important to capture. Um, yeah, so for this project, and since I'll show you the photos of the design soon here, but we wanted to reach a market that was quite broad, and also didn't want to position it as kind of like a hipster product per se in terms of like high price point and kind of a bit of pretension, I suppose. So we kind of had a fun little angle of referencing kind of family barbecues, times at the beach, and old grocery stores, retro candy packaging, um, Costco kind of hot dog vibes, you know what I'm saying? So basically that could reach like millennials, boomers, Gen Zs, people who have money to buy the product. So it kind of crosses across all different age demographics and socioeconomic demographics as well. We kept the price point pretty fair. So basically, yeah, just for this one, we just figured out who our target market was, and that informed what it looked like. And then we obviously had a lot of sessions with the client going back and forth about different approaches and styles. There was a ton of different iterations about the direction to take it in. And then we started designing based on all of those findings. One thing I do as a packaging designer too is it's my responsibility to find all the containers for the products. So had to source like the sort of bottles that we were going to use, and also the packaging, the boxes, and kind of stuff like the packing boxes that can be torn open and the product can be merchandised like on the forklift trays. Anyway, and then what am I? Where am I at here? Yeah, so I'm just kind of explaining the process here a little bit more. Lots of text. I'm sure you're not reading that, but I'm gonna try and summarize here. Yeah, anyway, I talked about like die line creation and container style. So we chose those containers, got some samples sent in from the suppliers as well, and kind of determined which ones we like the most. And then also part of the branding too is I'm also an illustrator. I call myself almost an illustrator first. So we came up with a mascot for the brand. So this kind of led the push in marketing down the road. And color wise on this project, I'll skip ahead. No, I'll stay here. Color wise on this project, we had existing color palette to work with, that we wanted to use that kind of forms the base of the original Honey brand, but we introduced a couple more colors just to vary it slightly. We didn't want to dilute the brand by introducing more colors. We still wanted to take the Catocco Lake Honey, brand forward, um, and make sure we still had that connection from the old customer base. So yeah, this is just the style guide for the packaging. I like to do a style guide for every package I do. And I think also when you're doing your case studies, it's important to showcase this kind of stuff too, just so people can see kind of the way you're thinking about the packaging as being more than just a package. We want to maintain these standards through all touch points, and also there's other stakeholders working within the brand, keeping it alive. Like the client hires, social media company to manage social media and whatnot. So they need these assets to make sure things are like dialed in. So yeah, there's the brand guide that we created. I also created some custom type effects in Illustrator to make it easy for them. So basically, this drop shadow text here is just a custom effect that anyone can use who uses Illustrator. They don't have that feature in Canva yet, which is too bad for the social media people who are doing the brand, but that's their fault that they don't use Illustrator, I suppose. Anyway, yeah, and then after I kind of showed all this stuff in my presentation to for the interview, I went right into photos here. So like I said before, we were lucky to work with a great photographer who took these photos for us. And yeah, this is my favorite one. I like this, the teal one the most. I think so. Basically, if I go back here, the red and the yellow were existing brand colors, which worked out really well. They pop quite quite well. And as you can see, we're kind of referencing like a 70s style brand, which works well across all demographics. Retro designs are sell because they're used to what people are seeing. People are used to seeing them, I guess, as they're familiar. So they work. So that's one of the reasons why we chose this approach. I like the way the die line turned out too. That took a long time to develop properly. So and yeah, this is my favorite one. I like the teal. The teal color was introduced. If it's not teal, tell me later, because I'm a little nervous. But anyway, we introduced the teal later, and it's a add to the brand extension a little bit to the brand extension, and I think it looks pretty awesome. This was a cool addition to the package design. He did a mixer pack that's sold in some stores, but not all stores. But the people in the interview really liked how I presented this because usually you'd see people doing like a mock-up or a render or whatnot. But I just wanted to show them kind of like how I laid it out and how the folding die line worked. Of course, I got rid of some of the things on the die line, but yeah. Anyway, gives them an idea of your layout knowledge and your hierarchy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and anyway, we had a lot of fun with this one. The illustrations were all done by me, and we've brought some of these ones to life as well throughout some kind of social media pushes and some advertising. So it was fun to bring these drawings to life with animation, which is something I do as well. And yeah, color limitations as well. So this had, obviously we had one color to work with. It was a small budget. So it worked out pretty well because since we're doing this kind of retro brand, it works great to print just straight up brown on craft paper. And it's been selling really well, so that's great. The last page here, this is an ad I did that was on YouTube and on Instagram and Facebook. So I laid this out, like I didn't present a video. I thought like that would be kind of I don't know, annoying or something. So I broke it down into frames, took the best frames, and I think it communicates pretty well. They were happy about how it, it's pretty clear with the text here and the drawings. So yeah, this is a pretty successful little launch here. And as you can see, the Katakole character is the hero. The honey mustard is the hero, and he or they is beating French's mustard. We couldn't say French's mustard because that would have been really bad because they probably would have sued Take Lake Honey, right? But anyway, he's beating him and showing that he's the new champion, healthier and tastier. And then, yeah, so the last page, I think, in my presentation, it's important to have some results to show the interviewers. So I just said, we won an award for this from Sobeys, which is cool. That came a couple months ago, or yeah, about 6 months ago. And then, yeah, available in 100 stores. So I guess I lied about the hundreds of stores, but hundreds is 100 is better than 20. So there you go. And then sales, that I mean this sales figure is quite old, so it's probably a little bit more. But anyway, thanks for listening to me ramble on about this project. I hope it makes sense on how I laid it out and all that stuff. Excited to answer some questions after too about the process as well. So that's it for me.
Aiden, that was phenomenal. I had a DM saying Aiden is so cool, just so you know.
Oh,
Like seriously,
okay, cool.
seriously, that's the thing. No, 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 that was fantastic. I
Thank
love
you.
I like something simple about like just the die line, being able to nerd out about you know what, like that it's a simple die line, but like do you know how hard that was to get right? Make sure that the curvature of it was sitting on the right front and yeah, I got you. Like
Yeah, thank you. No, the box we did the box too. So I mean, I love doing this. I love doing guideline stuff. So it's
and
always
I think it's teal.
fun to
I
do.
got the fingers.
Teal. Oh,
It's
I love
yeah,
your
I'm
nails.
pretty. Yeah,
So
it's like just it almost makes you thirsty for it. Just that yellow and teal combination. Like I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed.
thank you.
And I think I think the word you were working for, because I do a lot of retro or kind of flashbacky kind of vibe in my work as well too. Not same, but same. It's like it's the emotion that brings that makes you feel safe or it like when life was more simple. And I like
Yes,
that's the kind of like feeling that your design has emoted for me. So
that's the goal. Yeah, because I mean I love old packaging, candy packaging. I collect it. You should see my drawers. They're full of junk. But yeah,
okay,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
new webinar series is the strange things that designers collect. I'm subscribed. Okay, I'll let you
That's
host
great.
that one.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Aiden. I'm gonna say goodbye to you for right
Thanks.
now. We'll bring you guys back up to answer some questions in a bit. And we'll get on to our last designer today. So she can get up and share her screen while I introduce her. Cicely Carlisle, RGD, is a Toronto-based designer with over 6 years of experience working as a freelancer. She primarily focuses on crafting brand identities and websites for beauty and lifestyle brands. As a former flight attendant with a background in fashion design, she is constantly inspired by the worlds of fashion and travel. This is exciting. I can't wait. The floor is yours, Carly. Or
Thanks,
Cicely, sorry.
Amanda. Those two other presentations were amazing. So I've got big shoes to fill. And can you guys see my screen?
You are
And
good. Yep.
okay, like if I toggle back and forth, you can see it.
Yep, you're totally golden.
Cool. Okay, so um, just want to quickly say off the top, well, it's fresh in my head because Tyler had mentioned it's good to sort of like record everything when you're working on like a real project because then it's easier to put the case study together at the end. And that was something I definitely noticed when putting all my case studies together is I wish that I had sort of like taken notes or recorded better. So going through this whole process, I now am making more of a considered effort to just kind of like organize things so that when I'm putting, fresh new projects on my website, my portfolio, it's easier for me to put those case studies together. So I thought I would just share that if that's a helpful tip for anybody. But I'll get into the presentation. So I just want to, of course, thank the RGD for asking me to speak and inviting me to talk about my process and share this case study. And I have watched a lot of these webinars. I watched a lot of them while I was going through the certification process. So now that I'm presenting, it's kind of a full circle moment, which I think is fun. So I'll jump in here. So I actually made just like a really quick intro slide before I went into my 3 case studies. I just wanted to do like a quick introduction, like not go into it like deeply, but just give a quick background on like who I was, how I got into design for the evaluators. And Amanda, as you mentioned, I'm a freelance designer in Toronto, and I work with clients independently as well with studios, agencies as an independent contractor. And the case study I'm going to present is work that was done for one of my freelance clients. And you'll see that I talk a lot about kind of my methodology as well as professional standards a lot because I wanted to go into detail about my process versus what I had submitted in the written portion for the RGD certification. So this case study is one that I spent the most time on. It's the most robust out of the 3, simply because of the deliverables, and also it's really special to me because the client and I shared the same vision, and we're very much aligned on the visual direction, the aesthetics. So this is a rebrand and web design project for naturopathic doctor Kim Vance. She specializes in women's hormonal health and practices independently in Ontario. I was the sole designer and I worked closely with Kim, and this project was completed in 2023. So a little bit outdated, but because it was near and dear to my heart, I really wanted to include it and talk about it. And this is the exact case study I presented. So every so often, I might mention something kind of as like a little side note that might be helpful to somebody who's going through this process. So I started off by showing the evaluators what I had initially created for the client back in 2019 when I was hired to do her very first identity and website. I thought it was important to visually show the transformation along with mentioning that this then meant that the client and I had an established trusted rapport. So here you can just see like a really quick visual overview of the previous visual direction. So when Kim reached out to me, it had been 4 years later, and her practice had grown significantly. She now had like a really good understanding of who her core audience was, and she wanted to refresh her brand so that it was more visually relevant within the wellness space and would therefore better connect with her current audience and, of course, a broader one too. The goal was to create a new visual identity that reflected her values as a practitioner, but also combined with a style that spoke to her aesthetic and that would resonate with her core audience. I was also tasked with designing and building out her new website. We did it on Squarespace and I custom coded it all. Other deliverables included social media assets such as reusable templates for Instagram. I always start with providing my clients with a design questionnaire, which you can see here. So these are just some screenshots of the types of questions I ask, such as, type of work the client does, products they sell, services they provide, and the why behind all of this. Who is this for? Who their ideal client is, etc. Pretty standard stuff. However, sometimes if I have an idea of a direction I think I want to go in, I'll add images to the questionnaire and then ask the client if those images like resonate with them in any specific way. This just helps me get kind of a quick gut check on the direction. And of course, this came in handy with Kim since I already kind of knew what direction to take this project in. So after reviewing all of that information about Kim and her audience, I start to put together a persona. I find this is helpful not only for myself when thinking about who I'm designing for, but it's also really helpful for the client. This way, decisions can be made more objectively. It's easier for the client to separate their own personal feelings as to what they like and don't like. So you can see here is what I built out for this persona that we ended up calling quote unquote Jen. So I showed this to Kim, had her approve it before starting to develop the mood board. I also include these as pages within the brand style guide that I hand off to the client at the end. This way, Kim can refer back to it and be reminded of who her brand is actually for. So for Kim's business, I identified that her core audience was professional women in their 30s dealing with hormone-related health concerns. This person felt frustrated by not feeling understood and or supported by the traditional healthcare system. Kim actually had a very similar story, which is why she got into becoming a naturopathic doctor in the first place with her own medical journey. It was determined that her story would be really important by establishing trust, relatability, and helping her audience feel empowered. Her brand would advocate for those women who did not feel seen and heard. So I really wanted the brand's visuals to evoke these same sentiments. And here's a selection of some of the new brand photography Kim actually did prior to hiring me. I used this brand photography along with her responses to the questionnaire as a starting point for developing the brand concept. So I personally use the one concept method as I have found that providing more than one option for my clients is sometimes like quite overwhelming. I ask a lot of questions in the beginning, and the client and I go over the responses in depth so that at the end, I feel really confident with just providing one fully thought out concept. And this is explained prior to the client signing on, and this is also included in the contract. There are 2 rounds of revisions included, which is also explained to the client ahead of time, and again, is also in the contract. So this is the final mood board I created to set the overall tone and visual direction. Based on all the information provided, Kim and I decided that the feeling tone would be comforting, organic, elegant, clean, a little bit retro and contemporary. Design details would include hand-drawn, inky graphics, textures, abstract shapes, warm, earthy colors, and serif type. So since Kim had brand photography that would be used throughout the website and other touch points, I wanted to include some of the photography in another version of the mood board seen here to show how it worked harmoniously with all the other elements and colors. I made sure the colors selected met accessibility standards. For web, in the brand style guide, I always include approved color combinations that meet these requirements. And of course, they provide enough contrast between the background color, text, graphics. And just again, as a little side note, for the actual application, I submitted the full brand style guide. And then in the presentation, as you're seeing, I just simply select specific pages to help tell the story of my process. So when it comes to creating logos, I always just start out by sketching some ideas in tandem with playing around in Illustrator. And here you should be able to see a video. As it was important for Kim's story to resonate with the audience, this idea of embracing human imperfections came to mind. Kim and I discussed the experience she and most of her patients had at feeling very vulnerable with their personal health struggles and the pressure women feel to be perfect. Kim wanted her audience to know that there's nothing intrinsically wrong with them. We're all human, we're not perfect. This brought about then the concept of creating organic, uneven edges to embody this message in the brand mark with the letter form K seen in the video here. And then again, side note, I was really lucky that I was proactive in taking a screen recording, so that came in handy. And in this case, just really being able to show the behind the scenes process of ideating, which the evaluators like really enjoyed. So here's the approved main logo, the word mark. We ended up selecting the typeface seen in a display designed by the type designer Margot Levesque. It was selected for its elegant and contemporary feel. I customized the word mark by adjusting the A and K to create a distinct elevated look and kern the spacing between certain letters, such as creating a ligature between the A and N. I made sure Kim understood the added cost for the purchase of the EULA and user license agreement and why having the appropriate license was really important. So this is the before with nothing changed the typeface, and then the after. And here are the other logo variations as the logo suite needed to be flexible. There were several applications that needed to be considered. So for example, website header, footer, social media, and any other placement where horizontal space might be limited. And the same display font for the word mark was used for the headings and subheadings for consistency, of course. I paired this with the font family Tavaraj, I hope I'm saying that properly, which is an open source Google font. Kim had also expressed an interest in hand-drawn inky textures, a style I had discovered during my research of contemporary holistic brands. And as I mentioned earlier, visual references were included in the mood board. So I drew custom ink style graphics that served as icons and then decorative elements. This also reinforced the idea of imperfection relating to Kim's story with the imperfect edges. These graphics help bring visual interest to the website and social media templates. Here are some examples of the Instagram posts I created where you can see those graphics being used throughout. And then again, throughout the website, I use these graphics to draw the user's attention to important information and as visual indicators for different services. This helped create cohesion across the site and other brand touchpoints. I made sure the website was responsive and users would have the same experience, whether it was desktop, mobile. I always make sure the client understands that when it comes to web design, I optimize the site for modern browsers, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, and popular device sizes within industry standards. So therefore, I cannot guarantee that the website will be exactly the same on all browsers or even future browser versions. After the website launched, Kim let me know that her virtual bookings had actually increased. Several of her patients had commented on the branding, noting that it was actually what drew them in and made them explore the site to learn more about Kim's story and her approach to women's health. They liked the look of a more modern, holistic style as compared to other naturopathic sites, which can tend to feel a little bit outdated. So to them, it was clear that Kim had put a lot of time and thought into the brand and website. And then in turn, this made them feel as though she would do the same for them and their health. So that's the case study. And I'm super happy I got certified. And I really encourage anyone else to do it, especially because I don't come from like a formal graphic design background. The certification really meant a lot for me and my confidence as a designer. And also, just another side note, the RGD does offer like being paired with a mentor, and I definitely took advantage of that. So, shout out Allison Rowan, who is amazing. And just having a mentor was really good because I could set a deadline. And personally, I need like human accountability. So, having this person being reliant on me to like have certain things done by a certain date was great. And then just being able to practice with somebody who went through the process too was really great. So thanks for everyone for listening.
It's just like I think that was like like you ended that. I thought you were the essence of like how you make them feel, and I'm like, oh, she just dropped the mic, and then you left with that. And I'm like, oh my God, my heart. So good. No, that was fantastic. I love that we can have everybody's video come back up. If Aiden and Tyler can come back up as well too. We can ask some questions. I have a couple questions usually just to kind of round out the call. We did have one question come in. And a volunteer to whoever wants to ask this as well too. Cecily, you had sketches in your process as well, so you might want to start with this one. Was should we put sketches and first iterations of our designs in the presentation? And how would you present that? And how about more strategic part of the project, or how do I present that visually? Is the question.
Yeah, so I definitely included it, and my mentor Allison, definitely encouraged me to do that too because it is part of the process. And I did not submit the sketches or any kind of like of the
Mhm.
screenshots of like my messy boards and stuff. I didn't submit that. I reserved that for the presentation where I could
Mhm.
really get into the nitty-gritty because that is part of the storytelling.
Yeah.
And yeah, the evaluators were really happy with seeing all of that stuff. And I think that that's your visual aid of like telling the story of how the strategy comes into place. They go hand in hand. So I think it just depends on the client and the context, and then how you would go about really explaining that to the evaluators.
I'm so glad that we all got to share in that screen recording, just FYI, just because it's like this entire group of 80 people on the call today would be like, you know what? I get that. I'm nerding out to this right now. So that was fantastic. Aiden and Tyler, I don't know if you have any talk about like that pre-work. Um,
Mm. Yeah, no, for sure. So this project that I showed didn't have
Hmm.
a lot of sketches in this, the one I showed
Yeah.
on the call. I did kind of tailor a little bit more for the actual interview. I didn't include sketches per se, but more just like old ads and old packaging, like for my collection, I guess. But for my other case studies, especially my personal skateboard brand one that I did, I had 2 pages of like notebook sketches, like all that stuff. And
Mhm.
I was nervous to share it because it's like kind of like messy and whatever. But then the evaluators were like, love that you showed your process like that. Even though it was like they didn't say it was messy, but in my head I'm like, oh, it's so ugly, like my handwriting. But no, they enjoyed seeing that, so I'd
You're
recommend it for sure if you have it.
Your safe group. I think the analogy of your mood board in there is a really great idea too, because certain people
Mm,
sketch different ways, right? Like I sketch with people
hmm.
with cutouts and kind of grab idea grabs, whereas some people take pen to paper and draw that way as well too. Like depending on what the question is and the process is a good thing.
Great point. Yeah, for sure.
Tyler, I don't know if you I can ask more questions. I've got 2 minutes here. I'm gonna
Uh,
let I'll start with Tyler because I didn't get to ask. Um, i- if I could ask one question at any of these webinars, is if you were talking to somebody out there that's like, they've been a designer for like 8, 10 years and they, don't see, like, they don't know what they would like or that kind of thing, like how they would get into this or what value it would bring. What would you say to those guys? I want to ask that question to everybody here. What would you say to the person that's like on the fence about going through this process?
there's something for me very isolating about being a designer. Like, there's something very personal about the work that we do, and not a lot of people understand that. And it's really hard because you have to constantly convince yourself not to take things personally. And that's very lonely and isolating. And I think that the community that you get access to pays dividends. Like just the Slack group. I actually happen to be part of like the firm owners channel. And like that is just it's really great. You feel very seen. And I think that that is incredibly important in the journey of a designer. And moreover, we're in an industry that is shifting. Our work is constantly being devalued. There are new tools at play right now that I think are very concerning for our industry. And there isn't a lot of thought leadership going into how to use those tools best. And being part of a community like this really helps us all in the long run. And that's kind of what I would say.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Carly, or sorry, Cecily. I keep looking
That's
at the
okay.
last name.
Yeah,
Cecily.
I agree. The community is instrumental. I feel like really fortunate to live in a city where there's a lot of events that the RGD puts on. Again, I think uh, just speaking to my own personal story of not coming from that school where you would tend to keep in touch with your peers and professors, community is really important to me, especially for networking, finding clients. Also, just peer-to-peer review, like being able to like shoot an email to somebody that I've met at an event to be like, hey, can you get a quick fresh eyes on this design so that I can just like push myself further as a designer? So yeah, all good stuff.
And props to Allison. Aiden?
Yeah, yeah. So I started my journey with the RGD as a provisional RGD. Now it's associate. That was when I first moved to Halifax, I think about 8 years ago, and didn't really get involved until the last year, where I started helping organize community events in Halifax. And basically, long story short is I've just been so busy with like I have businesses out the wazoo, so I'm just like I just never had time to like do it to do the certification process. But my business partner was like, "Hey man, like I'll make pick up some of the slack. You just focus on this stuff." And anyway, so I'm yeah, I wanted to do it forever, but it was actually not as time consuming and hard as I thought it was going to be. I at all. So it was awesome and easy, pretty fairly easy. Anyway, what I found with working with RGD and even just doing the local events here is like, yes, same with Tyler. Like I'm shy guy. You know, I'm a little quiet, and so I'm in my home office a lot. But then putting on these events, I've met so many amazing people and friends, and they invite me to their events. And then like I even did some talking at the university here because the professor invited me to talk about stuff. And so anyway, it's like finding my community in Halifax finally. I'm from Saskatchewan originally, so I mean, don't really have that many friends here. Anyway, I've met so many friends and so many rad people through like RGD. So that's why I do it. You know, it's great.
That's amazing. Okay, so we're a little bit over time. Thank you everybody for holding on. Aiden, Tyler, Cicely, you guys were amazing. I can't wait to see each one of you when we, whatever cross paths in the future RGD events. Come say hi and give me a hug because that's fantastic. New friends all around. Um, a couple things just right off the top. If you want to go and see your favorite designers that you haven't seen in a really long time, or at least be part of a virtual conference. Design Thinkers Vancouver is coming up very, very shortly. It's in May. You can still get tickets virtually and in person. If you've been to Design Thinkers in Toronto, Vancouver's kind of a little bit more intimate. It feels more immersive and more personal. It's one stream instead of many streams. There is still workshops. Still a phenomenal conference. It's much different. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, and shoot out any questions to the RGD if you guys have any follow-up questions on getting certified. But otherwise, thank you until next time. Thanks, guys. Have a
Thanks
great day.
everyone. Have a great